The weather's getting warmer, and everybody wants to be outside, even your smart speaker. Crank up your favorite Odyssey stations on your Amazon Echo, Google Nest, or Apple HomePod at the pool or while you're grilling. Get your summer soundtrack from stations across the USA, from top 40 to rock, R&B to country. It's all here on Odyssey. Play your favorite station at your command, hands-free on your smart speaker. Your summer soundtrack is part of a universe of audio on Odyssey.
For the ones who know safety isn't a catchphrase, it's a culture. And the ones who help make sure everyone makes it home safe. For the safety-minded who watch everyone's backs, Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry, as well as safety assessments and training to keep your facilities safe and your people safer. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
What up, everybody? B. Mitch and Finley. Might be the prettiest damn day of the year so far, Brian.
Nah.
Driving down here today, man, couldn't help but smile. Had the sunroof open. Silly feature on the 4Runner is being able to put the back windshield down. That might be the most underrated car feature out there.
Put it down, and what happens? The wind blows.
You just get a really nice breeze, sunroof through the back. Pleasant. Makes your hair look all fluffy. You wouldn't know about that.
I don't care about that.
Got a packed show today.
I'm a sexy head.
You are a sexy head. Barstool Nate will join us at 11 like he does every Tuesday. Landfill's trying to switch him to Monday. We'll ask him about that. 20 questions with Pete Haley at high noon. We got a hell of a guest for 20 questions. Do you remember who the guest is? I think I texted it last night.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know why I'm keeping it a surprise. I'm going to reveal it. Today's celebrity guest guesser for 20 questions will be Andy Tandler, the late Rich Tandler's wife. If you don't know Andy, she's a riot.
Oh, yes.
She has a lot to say. And the potential for 20 questions to go entirely off the rails is at its highest. Maybe not as high as when Rooster joined us, but it's high.
Well, I can imagine. Believe me.
1 o'clock, Trevor Sikkema will join us. We're going to talk NFL draft. And I kind of want to dig right into it, Brian. I mean this sincerely. Everybody keep your radio on, keep your Odyssey app on, but get outside. Go enjoy that sunshine, man. However, the big news of the morning. Yesterday we had Alex Smith's retirement, and that came down during our show. So we were able to kind of react in real time. I'm happy for Alex. I texted with some folks close to him, and it's just the right call for him and his family. Then this morning, similar news about Jordan Reed came out. Washington football team tight end retired after a solid, I mean, not as long as Alex, obviously, but he was a third-round pick in 2013.
Lot of concussions.
A lot of concussions, man. A lot of scary stuff, but a lot of highlights, too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you think about that 2015 season, when they got hot in the second half of the year, it was Kirk to Jay Reed a lot. And he was a weapon, man.
Yeah.
He was a stud. And then the injuries, the concussions started to pile up. 2016, he made the Pro Bowl. But that 2015 year, 87 catches, 952 yards, 11 touchdowns, and just a baller. Sometimes guys put up stats, and their impact isn't as significant as the stats. I'd argue for Jay Reed, especially in 2015 and 2016, his impact was greater than the stats.
It was, but that's the whole thing about this whole game of football, whatever sport we look at. When we have to find the 1 or 2 years, that's why we don't see them as. You have to be consistent throughout.
Sure.
And I think when we make the comments about you can't make the club in the tub, the guys that are injured get pissed off. But there are a lot of guys that were hurt that played, but in Jordan's situation. When you start dealing with the head injuries, CTE and of the like.
Scary, man.
I started to get worried about him because it seemed every time he took a shot, and it wasn't always hitting him in the head. Anytime he took a shot where his head snapped.
Hit the turf.
He had a concussion.
Yeah.
There were times he got hit and we go, oh, that wasn't that bad, and then he's out for 6 weeks. There were times he got really hit and we go, oh, man, and then he played the next week. So it's a strange thing, but we've had a lot of guys who come in and they've been able to do some magnificent things for a year or two. It's about time we start getting them doing it for 4 or 5.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's funny with Jordan Reed. If you remember early in his career, before the concussions, there was like a hamstring issue, then a shoulder issue, and he was starting to get that soft label.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he only played 20 games his first 2 years in the NFL and only started 6.
Yeah.
Combined, he's under 1,000 yards in 2 seasons, only 3 TDs. But then he kind of broke out that third year. But early on, he was kind of getting that soft label.
But I've watched, taking all these psychology classes, the only electives I had in college, other than taking these damn labs and all that.
I took swimming.
I took a lot of psychology, and I always watch how people work. And players get labeled as soft and this, that, and the other. But coaches today let them get away with all kind of stuff. Don't expect a lot. Soon as somebody we're going to let them sit on the side. All of this veteran day off when the guy's sitting his second or third damn year. I think the way they're handled is making that happen. Not necessarily the player themselves, but if you tell me I don't have to practice, I more than likely won't practice. But if you tell me I have to, I'll probably gut through it, get tougher, in a sense, and I'll be there. But no, a lot of coaching and management has screwed a lot of professional athletes these days.
So I'm totally with you there, and I think a couple things happened. Tommy O'Farrell tweeted this at me this morning because I put some tweets together and did a Facebook post on Jordan Reed. He's a guy I got to know. You know what I mean? Like,
mm-hmm.
I saw his kind of rise as I was on the beat and the player he could become, and then the injuries that kind of undid him. This is from Tommy O'Farrell, and this is from Chris Cooley said, "It's not that Jordan is soft. He gets banged up a lot, and some guys have higher pain thresholds than others. It's not that Jordan is soft and doesn't want to be out there and isn't doing everything he can to be out there for his guys." And so I remember that as kind of the growing mythology, if you will, of Jordan, that he's soft. And then I specifically remember this game, 2016 in Dallas. The Washington football team at that point is still, if you remember, 2016 is the year they had just a total dud in Week 17, a win-in home game against the Giants where they lost 19-10. But they were kind of treading water, trying to get into the playoffs, trying to get that wild card spot, and they went down to Dallas coming off back-to-back big wins over the Packers and the Vikings. Dallas on Thanksgiving, and it was an absolute shootout, if I remember this game right. I mean, I think the yardage was, it was just Zeke Elliott jumped in the big old Salvation Army pot,
the red pot.
But I remember Jay Reed in the second half of that game caught. I think he had 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter with Kirk trying to make this kind of miracle comeback.
Mm-hmm.
He separated his shoulder in the first half of that game. Came back out, played the second half, and you know how it is. Reporters are in the locker room. The players get like 3, maybe 5 minutes before reporters are in there. And when guys are hurt, you know it. And there was also, if I'm remembering right, there was a bit of like a fracas, for lack of a better word, at the end of that game between Josh Norman and Des Bryant. Mm-hmm. If you remember, I
remember that.
They were doing those Samsung commercials, and then somebody was talking about emptying the clip. Like, a lot happened after that game. So it was just chaos, and a lot of guys got to the locker room.
A lot of fake gangstering going on the football field.
Sure. And a lot of guys got to the locker room late. So we're in there, and Jay Reed comes in fully dressed still from the game. And to get his shoulder pads off, you know how tight they wear the jerseys, so especially skill position guys, so that they can't catch them. To get his jersey off, they had to cut from the sides.
Yeah.
And then eventually when he had to take his pads off. Now, people can help you get your pads off, but anybody that's worn shoulder pads, eventually you got to pull them up over your head. Mm-hmm. That's just the physics of the piece of equipment.
Just cut the string.
The scream he let out to get his shoulder pads up over his head, and there's no video cameras in there. You're not allowed to. Nobody's allowed to document somebody doing this, right? This is no fake gangstering, as you said. This was real.
No. The fake gangstering is the emptying the clip on the football field. That's stupid.
The scream Jay Reed let out in that locker room was a sound I'd never heard. And I probably never heard a football player scream like that again until Reuben Foster went down in OTAs in, May of 2019. And that moment right there, I was like, this guy ain't soft. This guy's giving it everything he can. He's playing through a separated shoulder. And I remember talking with some of the docs. Separated shoulder, I'm guessing you probably played through one at some point. There's really nothing you can do but rest it. So if it happens in the season, you either gut it out or you don't.
And see, the thing of it is this: we try to talk people away from saying a guy is soft or a guy is tougher. It's depending on the individual and how they handle things. I played with shoulder separations for multiple games.
Sure.
The way I had to get my arm taped to make sure it didn't move a certain way. That's the way I learned how to carry the ball in the left hand because the right shoulder was separated. But ultimately what happens, there are guys that could have been dealing with that. Probably would have made a noise at all, but they're hurting like hell. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I think when we look at it, it's different thing. And no matter how you break it down, there are going to always be people who saying that guy, if a guy's in the NFL, he's not soft. Let's just break it straight.
That is. But thank you for saying that. But I hate the term jag also. Yeah, a guy made it to the NFL. It's not
he made it to the
jag.
NFL because you're tough and you fought through some stuff. But ultimately, some guys can withstand more pain than others.
Sure.
And when you get to this level, okay, when you're at the level of the NFL where everybody is good, when you have any little thing that shows a weakness, may not be soft, a weakness, that's when you begin to lose out. Because that the dude next to you, he may be hurting more, but he ain't letting nobody know because he wants the opportunity. Like my dad told me, like I said, I played with a lot of stuff. Why? He said, if you let them do your job, they'll take your job. And it's always somebody saying, okay, yeah. See, this crap when I hear people talking about, oh, I'm just holding the spot till he gets back. To hell with that. You get hurt and I get your spot, I don't want to give it back.
How'd that go for Drew Bledsoe?
Yeah, like Tom Brady said, he ain't ever get this damn spot back.
And I guess my point here, B, is I think early in his career, Jordan Reed didn't know what it meant to play through pain and be a pro.
Yeah.
And I think he realized what it meant. And I think as he became a veteran, he started pushing through a lot.
He pushed through it, and he learned the way. And that's why the thing I said earlier about coaching, and I said about some front offices, soon as a guy get hurt, they get back. No, let somebody see where they can push themselves.
Sure.
That's that's the biggest difference I see between the early 90s and all, and now. Coaches then were like, get your ass on that field and play because so-and-so is trying to take your job. Today, no, we gave you more money, you got the job. That's how it works. So guys don't get to learn that until a little bit later as they go through it and they begin to realize if they see it happen to somebody else, they'll quickly realize that, oh, Lord, I better get out there and play.
And then there's toughness. There's playing with the shoulder injury. He dealt with the foot injury.
Mm-hmm.
Concussions are a different matter.
Yeah. Nobody said nothing about the concussions.
Do you remember the Ravens game where he tried to hide from the medical folks so they couldn't give him the baseline test after he took a big shot? I don't think that's safe or smart, but he's trying to just stay out there. Mm-hmm. And he got to the point, I remember.
Concussions have become just like the back injuries back in the day. When you say you had a back injury back in the day, they had to respect that and they couldn't say nothing against it. Once you get a concussion, they have to respect it. And what do teams do? The concussion now and the back injuries back then, when a team can't really figure out what's happening with you, they let you go. And guys understand that too.
Totally. And here's listen, we did a lot yesterday on Alex Smith, and he deserves the accolades he's getting and the respect from around the league. Mm-hmm. I mean, what he came back from is just so impressive. But I do think on some level we're not remembering maybe Jordan Reed enough. And you're right. I'm going to say you're right before I say what I'm about to say. some dork on Twitter says, I was just kind of telling these stories about Jordan Reed and the kind of person he was, all these things. Mm-hmm. And this guy said, too bad he was hurt every second of his career in Washington. I was like, he scored 24 touchdowns at tight end. I don't think he was hurt every second of his career.
But go ahead.
No, people remember things how they want to remember them. And then the flip side of all this is, I remember in Atlanta in that preseason game. And listen, I'm not here to argue if it's a dirty hit or not. I think it was a little late, and I think it was helmet to helmet. But he was going down, so maybe it wasn't helmet to helmet. Whatever. I had gotten to know Jordan a little bit on a personal level. He had 2 young girls. I had 2 young girls. A couple years earlier at training camp, I snapped a really cute picture of him with his daughters. I said, you want me to text this to you so you have it? He said, yes. Right? Like, you get to know people on a little bit of a personal level. And I remember his family members reaching out to me after that Atlanta game, who I hadn't texted with ever. Mm-hmm. And B, I know how your phone is. My phone's the same. Sometimes you just get texts from people. Like, my phone number's out there in the ether. And they were so scared that game because he took another shot to the head. And those are the moments where you're like, oh, my God, this is real life. This is a guy with a family. And it just it brings it all totally full circle for me. And it's just, I'm happy he was able to get this past year in San Fran. And much like Alex getting this past year coming all the way back in Washington. Now, the comebacks are incredibly different. The positions are incredibly different. I'm not comparing one to the other. But for Jordan Reed he had 4 touchdowns. He had a couple really good games when George Kittle went down. And then, injuries kind of undid him again. But I'm glad he got back to the game and then is able to kind of walk away on his own terms.
Yeah. I mean, it happens to all of us. If you play the game of pro football, you're retiring or you want to just walk away from it eventually. And I mean, it's come to that point. You look for the good things that happen and you praise that. But you don't live on and just try, like the guy saying, oh, he was hurt. What the hell that guy did? And that's why I say a lot of times when and it's not every fan. It's a small portion of fans that go out there and they like to say some dumb crap. I wish I could say a lot more words on this radio. And then you realize, then you get pissed when players don't respect you. See, karma comes back to bite you in your ass half the time. And that's what happens. So when a dumbass like that person right there says stuff like he said.
I think he deleted his tweet.
That person right there, he's the person that when you see him, you give him the one finger salute, you stiff arm, get the hell away from me. But the true fans out there, look, fans get upset just like anybody else, but most of them show respect anyway. And you'll do anything you can for those. You watch me, how I take time with fans. But don't come up to me with the mindset of that dude that tweeted that, and I will read you up and down. So the whole thing is give what you want. You want the players to respect you, respect them. Yes, they get hurt. It happens. We have to critique them. Hell, they get mad at me all the time. You have to critique them. But I will also sit in your face and explain to you why I'm saying something. I'm not going to hide behind some damn Twitter and all that stuff and say something and then never, ever come in your face.
Brian, you hide behind nothing. I love you for it. Coming up next, our buddy Craig Hoffman's going to call in real quick. I want to get him to tell a Jordan Reed story. Then we're going to switch it up. Running back, B. Running back.
That's not happening.
All that coming up next. B. Mitch and Finley.
One of the most influential figures in the Christian conservative movement mired in an alleged sex scandal.
Welcome back to Gangster Capitalism, Season 3, Jerry Falwell Jr. and Liberty University.
We got nothing to hide. We've operated a squeaky clean organization here for decades.
Please listen and follow Gangster Capitalism, a presentation of C13 Originals, a Cadence 13 studio, available now for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, and wherever you get your shows.
For the ones finding new ways to ensure the job always gets done. For the ones wearing many hats. For the ones who are hands-on, even from far away. And the ones keeping business moving forward. We are Grainger, offering supplies and solutions for every industry. With 24/7 support and experienced staff at over 250 local branches. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Innovation, resilience, agility. It's how Michigan businesses continue to work together to make a difference now and shape the future. Join us and make your mark where it matters. Visit michiganbusiness.org/radio.
B. Mitch and Finley, we are back. Don't look now, but the Washington Wizards are hot. Trying to get your boy.
You lost, though.
I haven't lost yet, dude.
Yeah, you lost that last night.
We're going to talk about that.
No, we're not going to talk about that.
We'll talk about that and heard it here first.
No.
All I want to say is my season-long bet.
Oh, your season-long bet
looked
is
very
possible,
dead for a
but
while.
Your last night bet, you over with that one.
We'll talk about it.
No, we're not.
We'll talk about
13 was the number.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
No, we're not talking about that one.
Right now, however, we're going to go to the BetQL guest line. Bet smarter, beat the books. Download the BetQL app today or visit BetQL.com. Going to bring in our friend Craig Hoffman. Hoffman covered the Washington football team for years with me out on the beat. He did it for 980. He did it for 106.7. You can follow him on Twitter at Craig Hoffman. Hoff, what's up, buddy? How are you, man?
I'm good, boys. There's nothing that gets me going in the morning like you two bickering about whether or not you're going to talk about something. I'm in the right frame of mind now. Let's do this. I'm ready to go.
Hey, man, you know how JP always want to make things the way he
the
wants.
The line on my phone said 12.
The line on your phone did not say 12.
I showed it to you.
The line on FanDuel said 13.
The line on my phone said 12.
The line on FanDuel said 13. It's amazing. Your phone said 12 for every damn betting app that was out there.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, your phone.
Hoff, thank you for jumping on. This was an unplanned appearance for Hoff, and I appreciate it because you and I were kind of tweeting back and forth with each other with the Jordan Reed news this morning. He's a player that we both got to know pretty well and both really liked and respected, and I just wanted to kind of let you talk about the dude you knew that is retiring, and I'm glad he's retiring on his own terms and maybe not forced to do something with all the head injuries.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad that he got last year in for the peace of mind because it's the kind of thing that I think we all, and Jordan, there was a point where Jordan was done. I knew someone who was pretty close to Jordan, and they had a conversation that was basically like, no, he's done. Like and the thing that I think I always try to talk about when I talked about Jordan, the injuries, is this is a guy who's a dad with two young girls who just loves his girls and ultimately wants to be there long term and like understood that was going to be part of his decision making. And that's the level we're talking about here when you're talking about head injuries and your long-term health. And he had kind of made peace with the fact that he was just going to be dad to his girls and he was done. And then he started seeing a different specialist and some different doctors who were able to clear the lingering symptoms, because that's the other part of it was the symptoms would not go away from that last concussion he had preseason in 2019 in Atlanta. And he finally got rid of those symptoms. And as he started to run around a little bit again, the itch started to come back, and he's able to make it through last season unscathed and have that finality on his terms. And like you said, JP, he's a guy that we both got to know pretty well and just a genuinely good dude. He really cared about the right things. He is frustrated his fans got that he wasn't consistently on the field. They weren't any more frustrated and certainly were less frustrated than Jordan was because he knew the impact he could have. He knew that when he was out there was nobody better than him as a pass-catching tight end in the league, and that includes Travis Kelce. That includes Rob Gronkowski. When he was actually at his best, there was nobody better. The problem was that happened so inconsistently, he never got to prove his greatness over time. And I think that ate at him more than people realize because he was pretty soft-spoken. He didn't do a ton of interviews. But there were times, and I'm sure this happened to you too, he would literally pull me aside and be like, do you think I'm as good as these other guys? And I'm like, you're joking, right? No, like he had a little, just enough insecurity about him as a human being and about his skill set that kept him going and driving forward. And it's unfortunate that ultimately we never got to see it play out over time. That 2015 season that he was never able to reproduce. I think in 2019 he looked as good in training camp as he ever had. He gets the concussion basically by staying in a series too long in the preseason, and ultimately that's kind of the final chapter of his career.
And I know it's hard to do, but think about Jordan Reed healthy his whole time. What type of numbers you think was possible for him to put up?
I mean, this is a guy who would have had 80 to 100 catches. Yeah, 80 to 100 catches a year, probably touching somewhere around 1,000 yards, 8 to 12, maybe even he has one. I mean, the 15 season, I think he finished with 12 touchdowns, tying the team record for tight ends, and he played only 12 games that year, I think. So if he can somehow string it together, like it's Madden and we're turning injuries off, and he plays 16, there's a season in his career in this alternate universe where he has 15 touchdowns. And so that's the kind of numbers we're talking about. Multiply that by 10 years, and there's your career, and he's headed to the Hall of Fame. I mean, he was that good as a pass catcher, as a route runner, and, getting ahead maybe a little bit of one of your questions, like, the thing that made him so special, and B-Mitch, you know this obviously as well as anybody playing in the league, there's just guys that your entire game plan goes around, and that was what a defense had to do to account for Jordan Reed. I remember having a conversation in 2015, probably was that off season with McVay, and he was saying, we need to get a couple more weapons, because right now when defensive coordinators start their game planning for the week, they write 86 on the whiteboard, circle it 3 times, and there's no other number they really write up there, because Deshaun and Pierre obviously were departing that offseason. And to know that you're that guy that the entire defense is trying to stop, and to still be as consistently great as he was when healthy in third down situations or in goal-to-go situations, where if you put him on an island, he was going to win, and he almost never dropped the ball. He had like year-long stretches where he didn't have a single drop. That's incredible. The clutchness of Jordan, I think, is underrated because he just wasn't as available as often, so he's seen as unreliable. But when he was on the field, when you needed it, you called his number, and you knew that you were going to get a great shot at it.
Well, if I don't want to hold you up too much, I know you got a lot going on. Switching gears, though, what do you think they should do at 19? You think there's a trade up? What do you think actually happens?
I think it depends on how far up you have to go, and this is like earth-shattering analysis, right? How far up do you have to go and for what? If you're trading all the way up to 4, that's going to be giving up more than you want to. 9 for a quarterback you really like, you got to consider it, depending on the price. If one of these guys falls to 12, 13, 14, 15, then, yeah, I think you pull the trigger and you see what you can do. But I do think that they'll have part of the good thing about 5 quarterbacks going early, maybe in the top 9, that pushes everyone else down. So if you get, Owusu Kamaroa at 19 or something like that, you're getting a guy who's probably a top 15, top 12 on your kind of raw score draft board at 19. I think that's a great place to be. So fill a need with the best player available, linebacker. If one of the tackles falls, that's certainly an option. There's enough guys at the right positions for them that they probably don't need to move. But if the opportunity presents itself, then I'm certainly not going to be hosting our coverage in round 1 screaming about what are they doing if they move up to 12 because Justin Fields or Trey Lance falls.
What's your quarterback big board?
I have given up my scouting days. I don't pretend to have strong feelings and having watched a lot of tape or anything. I will say this. I don't get why Fields consistently seems to be the last guy. Like, I haven't watched enough Trey Lance to be like, oh, yeah, I get it. He's way better than Justin Fields. All I know is Fields was good at Georgia and then great at Ohio State, 2 of the best programs in the country. Yeah, he's got a lot of talent. He knows how to read the field. The numbers are pretty ridiculous when he goes off his first read. He's athletic as hell. He's big. He's strong. He's tough. Like, if that's the 5th best quarterback in this draft, this is going to be an all-time class. That's kind of where I'm sitting. Probably something weird is going to happen, and these guys aren't going to pan out. And odds are you're looking at that Darnold, Rosen, whatever the other guys were in that class, where you look back and you're like, oh yeah, Lamar Jackson. That was the guy that should have been one. But we'll see. I think there's definitely not like that transcendent generational prospect or Luck Manning in this class. That's for sure.
You don't think Lawrence is that guy?
I mean, he's good. But the thing about, like, Manning, Luck, like, those dudes were 6'4", 6'5", Manning case 6'6", like 230. Like, they were built in a lab. Lawrence isn't that big, and, like, he's big. He's plenty big enough, and he might wind up being an all-pro. Who knows? Maybe he turns into a Hall of Famer. I'm not saying he can't, but, like, he's a little more slender build. He's not quite like the prototypical tank Hall of Fame, sure thing prospect that is literally like a once every 20 years.
Sure.
Luck and Manning are the only guys that grade out that way. And obviously there's been other great quarterbacks in between those guys. But like surefire, you draft him, you're going to the playoffs every year as long as he's healthy. I don't know if that guy's in this draft.
And I think when you look at that based off what he's saying, Luck was that guy, but the injury started to pop up.
Sure.
And I think that's the thing. Can Trevor take all the pounding that he's going to take?
6'6", but only 220.
That's what I'm saying.
I got to see, no big deal, I got to see and talk to Peyton when I was in Augusta. He is a tank. I mean, he's just a horse of a dude.
I remember seeing Peyton live, and it's one of those things you don't really think about as much on TV, but when that dude stepped into the huddle and was bigger than all of his linemen, you go, oh, right. Like you're the 6'6", 230 laser rocket arm from the MasterCard or Visa or whatever commercial it was. Like that's actually your life.
Still, to me, the wildest, and just to compare, like when you see players that are so much bigger than everybody, I'll never forget the first time I saw Sean Taylor go into the pregame huddle with the other secondary guys, and he was bigger than the linebackers,
like a pass rusher.
let alone the guys that were lining up in the secondary. It was a similar reaction. Hoff, thank you very much for the time, buddy. Everybody, make sure you follow him on Twitter at Craig Hoffman.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right, bro.
Take care, Craig. That was Craig Hoffman on the BetQL guest line. Bet smarter, beat the books. Download the BetQL app today or visit BetQL.com. Brian.
Yes, sir.
Coming up next, there's some silliness in the world.
Is it?
You ready to shout it down? I'm ready for it. You ready to bring some logic to the universe?
I will try my damnness.
Landfill, on what planet does Washington need to draft a running back with their first-round pick? We're going to discuss that next. Beamish and Finley, 106.7 The Fan. Make sure you're following along on social media. You can follow Beamish at Beamish Live NBCS. Follow me at JP Finley NBCS.
Yeah, there you go. You almost forgot that, huh?
I did. I think we're both fans of Peter Schrager. I think he does a great job on Good Morning Football. He's a good reporter, analyst on Fox. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You disagree? He just released his latest mock draft, and we're getting to mock draft season.
Mm-hmm.
We are, let's see if I can do the math, 8 days away from the NFL draft. 8 days away. Damn it, it's 9, isn't it? What day is it? Tuesday?
It's 9. It was 10 yesterday.
Yeah. Counting, not my strong suit. And, the beginning of this is Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. We pretty much know that's the case. Then he's got Mac Jones going to the Niners. I got a feeling that's not the case, but nobody really knows.
But a lot of people would be wrong if that was not the case.
None of that is unreasonable.
Yeah.
Justin Fields to the Panthers at 8, Trey Lance to the Broncos at 9. I can see both of those things happening.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Broncos would love to get Lance at 9 and give him time to develop. Mm-hmm. Interesting, he's got the Pats trading up with the Eagles to get Devontae Smith at number 12. You know who would help Cam Newton? Devontae Smith, Alabama star. But where I think things really go off the edge, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the little draft music, Landfill? All right, well, can we get that? We can't get that. Okay, Landfill says we can't get that.
They normally don't let you play that.
Fine.
They're kind of hardcore with their stuff.
All right, well, just sing it for me then, Cody Betts. With the 19th overall selection, the Washington football team in Peter Schrager's latest mock draft selects.
And who's that?
I loved it.
It kind of sounded like that rooster.
I thought it kind of sounded like the Love Boat or something, but I enjoyed it. I think it was an admirable effort, and I'll encourage you to do it often.
If I would have heard it first, I need to go back and listen to what it actually sounds like, and then I could try to...
Give it to me one more time before you listen.
I don't even think I have the right, notes. Yeah, You're, somewhere in between ours.
With the 19th overall pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, in Peter Schrager's mock draft, the Washington football team selects Travis Etienne, Clemson running back. Now, I'll say this.
I'll say he's a ball player.
He's a baller.
He is a baller.
I was listening to Daniel Jeremiah's podcast yesterday while doing infinitely more yard work, and he had Dabo Swinney on, and Dabo compared Etienne to Walter Payton. That's a big comp. And I think Etienne is a player.
He can catch it. Here's the backfield. He can run it.
Here's what Traeger wrote. First-round running backs might be a dying breed, but I love this addition to Scott Turner's offense. Etienne is electric between the tackles and in the open field as a ball carrier, but also adds value in the passing game. Washington still needs another playmaker or two on offense to be a threat in the NFC.
See, I guess he doesn't realize that the guy they drafted last year in the third round is exactly what he just described. A guy that was a receiver but has the body of a running back and has shown last year, 11 touchdowns, that he's capable of being that guy. And I think this year they're hoping to take that step. I don't know if you want to bring in an ATN and then all of a sudden now, okay, what are you doing with Gibson? I think Gibson gives you that luxury of going to another position and improving there.
In 14 games last season, Antonio Gibson ran for 795 yards with 11 touchdowns, averaged 4.7 yards per carry, also caught 36 balls for 247 yards, averaged 7 yards per catch. 1,042 yards from scrimmage with 11 touchdowns. He was a third-round pick. This wasn't Alfred Morris, a late-round Saturday flyer that ended up hitting. This is a third-round pick. That's an investment.
Yeah.
You cannot follow that up with a first-round running back. Now, it'd be one thing if he was a bust, if Gibson just didn't look like he belonged. He looked great. Remember him waving to the Cowboys linebackers as he ran into the end zone on Thanksgiving?
The question I asked, though, Najee Harris, did he say anything about him? Because he's the highest-rated running back in the draft.
I don't think he has Najee going in the first round.
I don't. If Najee doesn't go in the first round, I don't see a running back going in the first round.
Listen, Travis Etienne's a great player, and
he's from Louisiana. I still think Najee Harris is a better player.
Regardless, Washington shouldn't draft either of them.
Yeah,
and I agree with some of the rationale here. Washington still needs another playmaker or two on offense to be a threat in the NFC. I agree with that. But I think you look at a wideout if you need another skill possession guy. I think maybe you look to add another tight end later in the draft. I just think at 19, how about this? Rashad Bateman in this mock goes 20th. We had Thor Nystrom on the show yesterday comparing Rashad Bateman to Justin Jefferson. And I know they signed Adam Humphries. I know they signed Curtis Samuel. I know Terry's here, but you could use more wideouts. Yeah. You also have J.D. McKissick, who was really good for you last year.
He only caught over 80 receptions, did he? 81, something like that?
Yeah.
I'll just say this. I've been looking through this thing. There are a lot of receivers out there.
A lot of receivers out there.
And the thing of it is this. If you're drafting a first-round running back, you're drafting him to be your workhorse, not to come in and split time. So I don't see that happening.
Dude, you don't want to get too caught up in a mock draft. I just don't think this one makes particularly any sense. He's a stud player. It's nothing against the player or maybe even the idea, but you also got to consider they drafted Antonio Gibson in the third round last year. Prior to that, they drafted Bryce Love, who they just released. We haven't even talked about that. Yep. They drafted Darius Geis. They've invested at running back. Yeah. The investments just haven't paid off. A.G. Gibson paid off. He looks like a stud.
He paid off, and I think you already have McKissick, so those two guys can split time. You bring in somebody else, dude, you're not going to bring a first-round guy. He's going to be somebody that could be a backup or second, like a third, fourth, fifth rounder.
If you add another running back to compete with Peyton Barber in kind of that thumper role, I get it. But Gibbs is your guy. This one's a little silly to me. I want to take calls on that if people would like a first-round running back, if it's Travis or if you'd want Najee. Next, we have Barstool Nate. We got to talk to him about the running back position. We got to talk to him about the quarterback position. And, Landfill, we got to talk to him about egg salad. Doing all that next. 106.7 The Fan.